together subject matter experts on various issues that are playing out during this COVID-19 pandemic to help businesses large and small be able to navigate these difficult times. I really would like to thank Lindsay Ransdell, who has joined us today to talk about unemployment insurance for a little bit of this time, and then take questions. And many of you have already sent questions, and I appreciate that. And we'll read through those after Lindsay gets started. Looks like we got another one or two waiting to come on. We'll let that person get on, and then we'll get going. All right. So, and just so you know, I'm not talking to myself. If you see me look to the side here trying to get something done or say something, Amanda Kelly is the person making the technology work for me today. I need all the help I can get. So don't think that I've lost my mind if you see me just look at somebody and make a face and why isn't this working? So with that, we'll be at this right at an hour, unless we get all the questions answered beforehand. And we'll take questions. You can type in questions as you go. But like I said, we've got a group of questions right now, so maybe hold off on those. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And with Lindsay Ransdell, the Executive Director, Office of Employment and Apprenticeship Services, Kentucky Career Center, Kentucky Education and Workforce Development Cabinet.
Volume okay.
Thank you, Brett. I appreciate that. I've had the pleasure of knowing Brett for my entire career in state government. So he preceded me at the Cabinet for Economic Development, and then earlier this year, I came over here to Education and Workforce. So I was about 6 weeks on the job, and then the governor declared a state of emergency and sent all the staff home. So haven't quite done my traditional employer services job yet, but I'm looking forward to working with your all's companies on in happier times and more productive times on your traditional workforce needs. So for now, I'm learning to be a pitch hitter on unemployment, and I see some familiar names. So Kim and Dennis, you'll have to be patient with me. I know I've had a lot of conversations with you all, so if I misspeak today, you guys have probably heard my comments more often, so you can correct me. But as you all know, the governor and the Federal CARES Act have made a lot of changes to our unemployment programs. We've opened up eligibility for a lot of individuals that wouldn't traditionally be eligible. So 1099 contractors, part-time workers, seasonal workers, individuals that don't traditionally pay into the system. All of those folks are now eligible for unemployment benefits. So we're basically running kind of 4 unemployment programs at the time. The first is our traditional unemployment, which we're all used to. You pay in each paycheck and you're out of work due to no fault of your own, and then you claim for benefits. The second program, the Federal CARES Act, has allowed us to grant an additional 13 weeks of eligibility to anyone who has been on unemployment in the last year since July 1, and they have exhausted their original 26 weeks of eligibility. Those individuals are now eligible for an additional 13 weeks. The third program we're operating is Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. This is that program that gets all the daycare workers and church workers and nonprofits and 1099 workers and realtors and the kid that delivered your pizza from Domino's. All those would be eligible under this PUA program. It's a set amount for the moment, and it kind of lumps in all those not traditionally eligible. And then the fourth program is the pandemic compensation. That's the $600 that everyone's hearing about. The federal government has granted everyone that qualifies for a payment of state benefits an additional $600 a week, and that's good through July 31st. So I'll go through some specifics on each of those programs, and then we'll kind of go into your questions. On the $600 the CARES Act allowed, that is a flat $600. It is not prorated. It is not reduced based on earnings that you might report through traditional unemployment. You guys are used to seeing that sliding scale. PEUC is not part of that system. So as long as you get $1 in state benefits, you get that full $600. And as long as you're on that state unemployment, it's automatic. You don't have to request it. You don't have to apply for it. There are no additional steps to get that $600. So just remember, if you can get at least $1 in state benefits, you get that full $600. The 13 weeks, if you know someone who would be eligible for that, and they have exhausted their current claim, they will need to log in and file a new claim. Same process, same way that they've done it. They don't need to make any special notes or things like that. We'll correct it, and then we'll set them up for a new claim that way. With PUA, this program, you will apply for the exact same way we do with traditional unemployment, same claim, same process. The system will note that you are not traditionally eligible, whether you didn't have enough wages in your base period or you don't meet one of the criteria, you're going to get a denial automatically from the system. We've tried to stop it from sending out those letters, but it still may come. That's okay. If you get that denial letter, just know we have to manually create those PUA claims, and it does take us a little bit of time to do that. We are working to upgrade the system to be able to put PUA in automatically, but for right now, we're having to create a lot of those manually and pay them. As of right now, so as of today, Thursday, May the 7th, those PUA claims are paid automatically, but they should be converting to a request schedule. And I think that could be next week that it converts to that, but I don't know for sure. That order hasn't come out, and I'm waiting for an official communication from our cabinet staff on that. But when those PUA claimants get that notice, and they will be told when it happens, they will have to start claiming on an every other week basis. This is the same way that everyone that's on traditional unemployment operates. So those PUA claimants will log in every 2 weeks. They'll report any wages that they earned in the previous 2 weeks, any hours they worked, and then they will request their benefit payment. It'll be paid in 2 week segments. So whatever their state benefit is for a week times 2, the federal benefit $600 times 2. They get the state benefit payment is deposited first, and then a day or two later you'll get the federal $1,200. And those dollars are roughly, $1,200. If you've elected to have taxes taken out, we'll automatically remove 14% of that for your taxes, so you don't have to worry about it. So that's kind of PUA and what those individuals need to do. Traditional unemployment kind of has 2 paths. You can file as an individual, or if you're a large employer, you've got 50 or more employees, and more than 15 employees are going to be affected by the changes in your scheduling, you can file an e-claim. The individual process is very standard. They log into the system. They need to answer some questions about identity. They'll ask you, were you driving a Ford Escape, in 2013, and was it blue? And did you live on this address? Or, those standard generated identity questions you get sometimes on websites. That's how they're going to try to determine if you are who you say you are. You get those questions wrong, it's going to automatically flag the system that we have to manually verify your identity. So you guys may have been hearing that individuals from March and early April haven't had their claims approved because of identity verification. That's why. They answered some of those identity questions wrong. It's not a problem, we can fix it, but we have to manually go in and have that individual submit information, a household, utility bill, their driver's license, things, social security card, so that we can verify their identity, and then we can clear that flag and get them paid. So that's the first part with the traditional. It'll ask you questions about why did you separate from employment. If you put an answer like I quit, even if you put in the notes you quit because of COVID and the quarantine, quit is an automatic flag in our system to cause an investigation. And again, our system still knows the previous reasons for qualifiers for unemployment, and so it has to work through those. So traditionally, if you quit a job, you've not been eligible for unemployment, but we can override those answers, and we are trying to do that automatically on as many of those claims as we can. But just know if you have a quit or even sometimes a discharge, depending upon what the discharge was for, may or may not justify unemployment. Again, if you were discharged because of poor attendance and poor behavior and things like that, that's not an eligible reason for unemployment, so the claim could be denied. So again, anyone that has a claim under investigation, it could also be because of their reason for separation. If it's anything COVID related, we can correct that. We can clear the flag and get them paid. If it's a different reason, it just requires us to go a little bit further. And it does require our top tier unemployment staff, the people that do it for a living, not the folks like me who have been trained on it. Those are the individuals that have to review those cases and determine, they have to adjudicate those cases and determine if we have an issue or not. So that could cause an investigation. As they continue with that claim, they've answered their separation reasons, they've answered their identity verification. They'll make choices about, do you want a direct deposit or do you want a debit card? And do you want taxes withheld? Any of those changes they can make while they're filing the claim. Once that claim is filed, and again, I'm talking about for an individual, that comes into our system. Our system is automatically going to send a notice out to whoever is listed as that person's employer. So if they're a realtor and they listed their broker as their employer, that broker is going to get an employer notice. You guys have probably received them from your employees. This is the employer's chance to dispute that claim. If you are not disputing the claim and you don't have any problem with them having submitted that claim, you can ignore it. You can send it back in. It's your preference. We only have to have that form back if you were disputing the claim or if you've got questions about it. So do fill that out and send it back in if there's questions. There's an automatic 13-day employer protest period on all individual claims. We can't speed that process up. The system puts it in place. This is another one of those issues where you've heard about people having claims delayed. In many cases, it's because they filed multiple individual claims. Every time you file a new individual claim, it starts that 13-day period over. So if you go in every 10 days and file a new claim because you're waiting on the first one, you've just reset your clock every time. Some cases we can go in and manually override it if it's been enough weeks. You know, if you had someone from March who's had multiple claims, we can override and go back to the March claim and get over that 13-day period, but sometimes we can't. So again, this is why you've heard the governor and the lieutenant governor and Deputy Secretary Benton say, if you already have a claim, please do not file a new claim. You will slow the system down. So once that individual goes in and gets their claim filed, we've gone through the 13-day period, we've cleared everything. The individual will go in every 2 weeks to request a benefit payment. For an individual, your first payment is automatic. You will not have to report your earnings and the hours worked for the previous 2-week period when you do your first payment. It's going to come automatically through the system. It's going to be based on your full weekly benefit amount. You're going to get the $600 right along with it. This is causing some issues. For those of you that are doing reduced hours for your employees instead of in a total layoff, those individuals will not have reported those reduced hours prior to that first automatic payment. We are aware of the flaw. We're not happy about it. It's not the greatest thing, but we're going to be pretty liberal about those claims. If it was an automatic first payment, we are not investigating those and we will not require repayment. On subsequent payments, yes, we are going to make sure that those numbers are right, but that first automatic payment, we're being flexible with what it issues as a payment. So that's the process for individuals. Every 2 weeks, they get a deposit from the state, they get a deposit from the feds. They report their hours and wages. If you have an e-claim, again, you have 50 or more employees, more than 15 employees are going to be affected. You can file one claim on behalf of all your employees. We can accept one claim, and if you make absolutely no changes in the hours that those employees are working from week to week, we only need a new claim like every 9 weeks. But if every week you're going in and there's going to be changes and someone's going to go on layoff, someone's going to go off, or you're reducing hours or things like that, we will ask that you give us a fresh e-claim each week. The benefit to your employees of an e-claim, first and foremost, it's a weekly schedule instead of a bi-weekly schedule. Your employees will get a deposit. They will request benefits every week instead of every 2 weeks. Second benefit is, since you are the employer, we are assuming you know who's working for you. When you submit on their behalf, we don't have to go through quite as much of the identity verification and separation questions. So there's a lot fewer questions for the employee when you do the e-claim. Third thing that's great for your employees with the e-claim, again, since you're the employer and you're submitting, we assume you're supportive of their claim, there is no 13-day waiting period. So that speeds up how quickly we can get those checks out to your employees. If you submit an e-claim by the Wednesday noon deadline, and if we have no trouble, and you've put in email addresses and race and last day worked and unique identifiers and all their birthdays are correct, and we have zero problems with your e-claim, usually we can get those individuals paid within 2 weeks. With an e-claim, you submit by Wednesday at noon. We do all of our processing overnight. So we upload your claims into the system. The next day, ideally, if we've done all that on Wednesday night, Thursday, that notice goes out to Bank of America. Bank of America will issue a debit card to all of your staff, regardless of their preferences. It will not be activated. It will not have any money on it. It'll go out automatically. Our system will also generate a letter sent to each of your staff, and it has the claimant instructions on what they need to do. Sometimes it takes a little while, since we're using U.S. Postal Service, to get those letters to your staff. So I do have instructions that I can send you on what that letter will say, just the e-claimant instructions and how it works. So once that letter goes out Thursday, Friday to your staff, we will also reset the PINs of all your staff you included on that claim. Your PIN number is what you use to log in. It's kind of like your password. It's a 4-digit number. We will reset all those PIN numbers for your staff to the last 4 of their social security number. Ideally, fingers crossed, they can remember those 4 numbers. If they can't, they can reset that themselves if they remember their security questions. If not, we can reset it for them. So the next piece is between Sunday and Wednesday of the following week. If you have filed your e-claim by Wednesday, by Sunday through Wednesday, your individuals can log into our website and they can update their accounts, change their deposit preferences, verify their address information is correct, and then they can request their first benefit payment. Individual claims are paid automatically the first time. E-claims are always manual. Individuals get the automatic first payment. E-claims have to request every time. So that's a little bit of a difference there. But when your employees do request that first check, they will report their hours and wages for the previous period. So hopefully we don't run into that same flaw on these that we do on the individual first automatic payment. So Sunday through Wednesday, they can log in, request their benefit payment, and then hopefully within 5 days of requesting that, when everything gets processed, they'll get their checks. So usually, again, within 2 weeks of you submitting your e-claim, if we don't have a single hiccup, we can get payment. But we do find sometimes employees log in to make that request payment. They change something in the system. They file a claim, those kind of things. So just be warned. It's not always smooth, but we'll do our best. What will mess up an e-claim is if an individual files a claim of their own, because again, they will get switched over to the individual protocols. Those individual claims trump an e-claim in our system. So if one's already in there, it's going to supersede it. Now our system right now is trying to fight with itself, and it's trying to take those new e-claims we file each week and convert them back to that 1-week schedule. So it's not doing that consistently, and so I don't want to tell you that it's going to do that for all of your e-claims, but just know if you're having workers log in and they're having issues claiming and they have an individual claim, it could be because the system is trying to figure out if they need to be paying them on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis. And it's a little overwhelmed. So it's working as fast as it can, but they could be confusing the system by having multiple claims in there. So that's the e-claim process. Timing wise, as it is with all claims, e-claims claim from Sunday through Wednesday, individuals claim from Wednesday through Saturday. Just like the roads and the interstate, there is a rush hour to the system. Sundays are always busy. If you have an employee that's trying to log in on a Sunday to request their payments and they keep getting a busy signal, that's why. Everyone else in the state is doing it at the same time. You got 600,000 friends that are trying to claim in a given week. And so it will slow the system, but they should just keep trying to log in that way. But again, if they can't get in on Sunday, they have until Wednesday. Or on an individual side, if they can't get on Wednesday, they've got through Saturday. First thing in the morning is usually a little bit busy as well. Again, kind of rush hour. So just pick a random time during the day and try to make your request at that time. Another question we get a lot is about communicating issues. So you as employers, my office is set up to handle employer issues, not in emails and calls from individuals, but mass issues coming from employers. If you email my office, workforce@ky.gov, and Amanda will type that in the chat window for you guys. So workforce@ky.gov. Once a day, with all the issues that your employees are having, one of my staff will be assigned to your company and they will address all your issues. It's a lot more efficient for us if we can have one email a day rather than a bunch of individual ones. It just helps us make it a priority and get through it and kind of know where we are. So if you could ask your employees to send their unemployment issues through you, then you send them to me, we will get them answered as quickly as possible. I have a little table that you can fill in if it makes it easier for you guys. We can send that out after the call to all the registrants. But anytime you're sending in an issue or one of your employees are sending in their own issue, we need their full name, we need the last four of their social security number, their email, their phone number, and a clear explanation of what the problem is. The reason we need that is there's a lot of people with the same name in the system, and so the social helps us make sure we're looking at the right claim. The explanation of the issue is because there's multiple skill sets within our UI team, and we want to make sure we get it to the right person. So if it's something simple and easy like a pin reset, our tier 2 people can do that, and it's quick and easy for them. I'd hate to take the time of a tier 4 really experienced super user to reset a pin. I need them working on the more complicated issues. So give us an explanation of what the issue is and we'll get the right staff assigned to resolve that issue. The phone lines, unfortunately, are not the best way to communicate with us. They are overwhelmed with calls. I would really encourage any of your employees that have issues to funnel them through you to my office. Otherwise, they should email uiassistance@ky.gov. And that's all over our social media, all over our websites, UI Assistance. That's the individual claimant line where they can send an email. Our staff are telecommuting, they're really working around the clock. And so email is really the best way to communicate with us rather than to call into the system. So those folks that are saying, I've been on the line for 5 hours today, just send an email and we'll get to it. In some cases, it's faster than the phone calls. But include their email and phone number so we know how to respond to them. You'd be amazed the number of people who send an email that don't either include their name or don't include a phone number. So make sure that you do that. So those are the main pieces about how unemployment is working right now, how the e-claim versus individual claims work, and the process. So Brett, do you want to start going through some of our questions?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Lindsay. What I'll do and what we may ask as we go through this is we've got everybody muted. Some of you have muted yourself. And as I ask the question, I'm trying to connect the dots between multiple, because some of these questions are very similar or they are tied together. So I'm going to start with a question from Nay on there. I think you're unmuted now.
Yes.
And I want to tie your questions 1 and 2 together to see if that helps. And this question comes up in a couple of different places, so I think that'll help. You say you did a mass file for your employees, and when you did that, you filed a return to work date of 4/12, which they did not return to work. So on the next file, you put a to be determined in the return to work date. So your employees have not been able to request a check for weeks 4/18, 4/25, and 5/02. So your question so I'm going to tie that also to your third question, because you've had teammates say they are still under the 13-day protest, but if you did an e-file, I think I heard earlier that circumvents the 13-day protest. And anyway, you've sent some emails trying to get a response, haven't been able to. So I think there's a tie there. Is there somebody else they need to be trying to? I think we answered that with the email.
No, that's a good first question. So a couple of terms there. So when you are submitting a claim, whether it's an e-claim or individual, we're going to ask you the last day worked. And again, because reduced hours and total layoffs are both eligible factors for unemployment, the last day work needs to be the last day you were at your regular permanent schedule. Before anything started shifting, before you started going week on, week off, or reduced hours, what was the last day you were on your permanent schedule? The return to work date is the opposite. What is the date you've gone back to your regular schedule permanently? Layoffs are done, rotations are done, reductions are done. You are back 100% to where you were before on a permanent basis. We do require a last day worked to be listed on all claims. That's how we determine effective dates, but we are not requiring a return to work date. So if you are filing a new claim, you can leave that blank and we can fill it in later. Now, Nay, good question. In the case of your staff where you had a return to work date and it's changed, if you wouldn't mind to send me, you can either send me the original e-claim files, or if you want to just create a new Excel spreadsheet and copy and paste, send me a list of every worker who has been impacted with their socials, just like you did in your e-claim, and tell me what the new return to work date is. Otherwise, we can blank it out and just leave it blank for now. But when you put in a return to work date, that's basically how we close a claim. So the system is going to look every time your employee goes in to request a benefit payment. And if it sees a return to work date of April 12th, then the system says, hey, it's now May 7th. You've gone back to work. You shouldn't be requesting benefits, and it's going to lock you out. So we can remove that number. It doesn't take a lot of time. It's more tedious than anything having to log into 50, 60, 100 staff. But we can do that, and that's not a problem. So send me that updated file, Nay, and we'll get those return to work dates corrected.
Okay.
As for the other question about the 13-day, our e-claim system is getting a little overwhelmed and it keeps popping up on that 13-day notice. I would just encourage them to log out of the system and log back in the next day. And if for some reason they miss the window to request for that week, shoot me an email and we'll do a manual payment for that week. So the 13-day is not supposed to come up on e-claims, but the system is trying to process everything so fast. I think it's kind of like a kid at the store. It's just grabbing stuff, and then sometimes it's putting out some error message that it shouldn't. And we know that's very, very, very confusing, and we're not happy about it, but we're trying to work through as many of those things as they come about. It's also why some individuals are going in to request, and it's giving them, trying to force them to file a new claim. It's just a glitch in the system. So we can fix that. So, yeah.
Are we able to tell? I've had a few that's been not so patient, and I think have went in and actually filed a new claim. Can you tell on their summary whether they are set up as individuals or e-claim?
There is a way in the back of the system to tell the difference, but again, if they got impatient and they filed an individual claim, they took themselves out of the shortcut line and they just got in the back of the line at Space Mountain at Disney. So
okay.
Tell them you're willing to give them a fast pass if they can be patient. Otherwise, they got to wait the 13 days now.
Well, I tried to tell them that, but apparently they got the little error message that said file a new claim, and they just thought, okay, Nay, we're not going to listen to you. We're going to file a new claim.
Yeah.
So I think I've got a few that's like that.
Okay.
So, and they're having the same issue. The document was sent in and changed to a date of to be determined, but it's not reflecting. So I will get that spreadsheet out to you.
Send that to me, and then send me the contact info for, the basics for the staff that are having issues. So
I will. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. As employers, my office is trying to respond just to your needs. What we ask, that's why we ask you guys to be funneling those HR requests. Part of the problem we have at the cabinet right now is so many people are sending in emails to so many different people on the cabinet staff, is that we've got multiple staff trying to work in the same claims and resolve issues. And sometimes when you do that, you're blocking each other out, or the work you do replaces someone else's work. And so part of that is also is once somebody starts to work with a UI staffer, please stay with them, stop calling, stop emailing anyone else, and work just with your assigned staffer. So that's kind of what we're doing with my office, is that if your employees have an issue, if they could not call and not email on their own and just send it through you, my staff can be pretty responsive within a few days. As long as we don't get super overwhelmed, we can try to be responsive to your claims. It may take us, a day or 2 or 3 to get them through, as poor Kim and Dennis have seen with their cases. It takes us a few days, but we can usually fast track that for your employees. But again, that's if our office doesn't get overwhelmed, and we can kind of continue to have this VIP tent for the employers.
Thank you, Lindsay. And this is the second but third question that Nay sent in, and it overlaps with, I think, a couple other questions, including you, Cleta, when asking about if you call back some of your employees, but then then something happens and you have to lay them off again.
Yep. Do
they file a new claim or just begin requesting checks again?
Sure. So the good thing is if it's the same occurrence, again, we're still within, the impact is still because of COVID, and it's all still related to the original claim. They do not need to file a new claim. That is definitely do not need to do that. That's part of that reason we talk about the return to work date. That's why we want to have that blank, or we want to have it far in the future. As long as that return to work date is far in the future, they can continue to go in and request on the weeks that they need it. So again, I'm going to assume you're doing an e-claim. You've got staff that are working 40 hours one week, and then they're off entirely the next week. So for the week that they were off, they're going to request their benefit payment. For the week they work, they don't. So, and then for those of that are doing reduced hours, maybe they come back full time and you realize, boy, we got through that big order and we got that all out the door, but now we're slow again. But you know what? You guys can go work in the warehouse and organize it, and I'm going to pay you for 20 hours. Well, for that week, they would just report the 20 hours that they did work, and then that's going to reduce their weekly benefit amount accordingly. So yeah, you can leave that claim open. You don't need to file a new one. They just request when they need it and report wages accordingly.
So we'll stick with e-claims since we're on it. And this came from Kim. Do employees that have e-claims?
Kim gets a medal, guys, just so you know. She gets a medal right now.
do
the ringer with me. Her and Dennis.
Do the employees that have e-claims need to file a new claim for the PUA? Employees are being told that the company only filed an e-claim, but because they do not qualify for normal UI benefits, the company must file a pandemic claim.
Boy, if I could just somehow stop the grapevine. These Facebook groups, they are good and they're not, but everybody knows somebody who is a UI expert and they hear different things. And if we could just have people go straight to the UI source, that would be great. So in that case, that's misinformation. There is one claim system, there is one claim process, and it is what verifies eligibility for any of our 4 programs. They do not need to file new claims for PUA. They don't have to do anything different, just one system, one form. In this case, we're putting a lot of square pegs in round holes, but that's okay. So as long as you have filed an e-claim on behalf, no matter what their circumstances is, we have that claim in the system and we'll process it accordingly. So no, if they want PUA, they would apply the normal way. Now, one question that is coming up that came up for me in an email today is somebody says, I'm only getting $84 on state benefits, but the guy over there is on PUA and he's getting $180. Why is there a difference? And again, for traditional claims, we look at your base period wages. So what did you earn in the previous 5 quarters? And we multiply that by 1 point something or other. And there's math. I was a liberal arts major, so don't ask me to do math. But that comes up with what that weekly benefit amount is based on those 5 quarters. If you meet the qualifications for traditional unemployment, you're going to go in that bucket regardless of what your benefit amount is going to be. If you don't meet traditional qualifications, you're going to go in the PUA bucket no matter what the incomes are. If you're in the traditional bucket and that's where the system says you qualify, I can't force you into PUA. I can't convert you. The system won't allow it. whatever your qualifications and your circumstances are, that's the program you're going to be in. So for individuals that are saying I'd get more money if I were in PUA, I'm sorry, that's just not the way the system works. Now what could happen, and I had this happen with a woman this morning, is she had been on PUA, but April 1 started a new quarter for us. So the system recalculated the benefits as it does, dropped her oldest 5th quarter and brought on a new quarter. When that happened, her employment had changed during that time period. So now she's eligible for traditional unemployment. So unfortunately, she went into a situation where she was getting $180 a week for PUA. Now she's getting a lesser amount because she's on traditional unemployment. I'm sorry it's happening that way. We wish we could have just a set $180 minimum for everyone, but DOL doesn't allow that. But no matter what those circumstances are, you'll still get the $600 from the feds. So hopefully that's a acceptable consolation prize.
All right, thank Lindsay, and we'll unmute you as we go through your questions. And if you're on mute and you want to respond, go ahead. So I'm going to kind of group some questions that Tiffany and Walls and Kim have asked kind of together, and I'll start with the kind of the higher level, I think, and then work down into a question about the guidelines. And this has to do with employees who choose not to return to work due to fear of getting sick. What action do employers need to take? Will that employee still receive unemployment benefits?
So same standards apply to unemployment. You know, if you were being offered employment, the employer has made reasonable accommodations. That hasn't changed who's eligible. If you are refusing work, that can affect your eligibility. Now, if you're an at-risk population, you've got a pre-existing health condition, you're elderly, any of those factors that make you an at-risk population, you can decline work because of that, and you can still continue to claim your unemployment benefits. This is going to be hard in the coming months because schools are still out, but a lack of childcare is still a qualifying factor for unemployment. If you have to be off work because your kids have no childcare, that is still a reason you can be on an unemployment. Now, if your excuse is just that I can make a lot more money on unemployment than coming back to work for you, and I don't want to wear the gloves and the mask and stand behind the partition that you've accommodated me, by all means, you as the employer can file a dispute. So there's a website. I'm going to see let's see how smart I am, guys. There is a website you can use for that. So this is our unemployment website. There is a form on this website. I'm gonna find it again. Where you can actually dispute that claim. Here we go. So if you can copy this address down, if not, we'll send it. We'll send a link out as a follow-up. But there is a work refusal reporting form on our website. Please fill it out, submit it in, and we will review the claim. If individuals just want to make more money, that is not an acceptable reason to not report to work. So fill that out, have no problem. If you have any other issues, just send an email to us at either UI Assistance or workforce@ky.gov, and we will take care of it there. Also, I just want to point out on this website, there's some nice how-to videos for your staff if they've got questions. They're supposed to be doing a video about how to request a payment. There's information about filing a claim, the process, how to reset their PIN number, how to upload documents in case they have an identity verification issue. They can do that on here, as well as frequently asked questions. And then down at the bottom here, there's also an employer handbook from several weeks ago that we put together with some Q&A for you guys. So this website has a lot of good stuff on it. But again, if you have any questions, just email workforce@ky.gov.
And Amanda was able to get that email address into the chat section for the form, the worksheet that you put up. So that's in the chat section. And just real quickly, we're seeing some questions come in through the chat. We'll get to those. You know, we've got some time left, and if anybody else has any questions, you can put those in the chat, and we'll get to those as well. So related to this, and I think you did hit on this a little bit as a follow-up to that with the question Kim sent in. With the new guidelines, employees can refuse to return to work due to child care, which you covered. Is still, you know, a reason not to come to work. And if they are in the high risk category. What defines high risk categories, and is there specific documentation being used for the claimants to support their claim?
Yeah. So
what are those? What is a high? What are those high risks? Is it one of those instances? Well, is it a kind of an etched in stone list, or is it?
Yeah. So we're working on that. We're using CDC guidance and also from OSHA and the Federal Department of Labor. That's going to be posted on the reopening website here soon. We've actually got a task force through the governor's office where we're seeking input from businesses and the chamber and those kind of folks to come up with some of the issues, you know, to guide the governor on what he's recommending. So I can't define what that high risk population is right now, but we will have that officially on that website here soon. But again, we're trying to use as much federal guidance so it's consistent from one state to the next on what that is. But I mean, I could argue that if my dad stays home much longer, my mom is going to kill him, so he's at high risk. But I think they mean based on a medical reason.
I'm looking at the list of folks we have on here. Kim Nance, are you on here? Because I want to make sure, because she had a question about the e-claims that was confusing documentation provided to employers. And I think you walked through that e-claim process.
Yes.
Did we answer your questions, Kim?
Yes, this has been very helpful. So
it's amazing when you can ask a question, how helpful that is. What a novel concept.
And also looking at what is the best, you asked about the best practice, an employee has filed a claim incorrectly with dates wrong reason, et cetera, et cetera. And we kind of clear that up for you. Does that help?
Send that to me in your daily, you know, one email a day and we'll get them corrected.
sounds good.
Return to work dates, last day work, PIN numbers, those kind of things. We can fix those pretty quick. It's just a matter of logging in and doing it. So if you send me 600 last day works to change, it's going to take a little while, but each one doesn't take too long.
And then the last one I'll cover about the steps to reopen an existing claim. You had a question about, can you explain to it? How do you explain to an employee the steps to reopen an existing claim? Does that tie into that? Well, I came back to work. Now now I'm laid off.
Yes.
You have a clear picture for that, or
very clear. I think it's very easy. If they can get on the system, just hit that request for benefit and submit the information that the system asks for.
Yeah, just the big thing is as long as we have that return to work date clear, then they won't have any problems requesting. But if we've got an older date in there, then they're going to get locked. So, but that's also where we want you guys to let us know when you do have those return to work dates so we can correct your systems for you. So that way we don't risk any of your employees maybe stretching out those benefits a little longer than they need to.
Good. Kim, do you have anything else before? Well,
yeah, that actually goes to, I'm sorry, you're talking about the other Kim.
Yeah.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
I promise, Kim, we'll get back to you. I wanted to jump over to Paige McGuire. I think we covered how you reach out to UI if you get employees that decline to come back to work with that form. But you still have some folks that have been laid off and still haven't received benefits. Are you comfortable with the direction you've gotten today to be able to give them, or do you have some other questions? That's for Paige. Did we unmute her? I think, let's make sure you're unmuted. You're unmuted now, Paige. I'm sorry. Did we cover that question for you? Hello? All right. Let's see. Well, Kim, go ahead and unmute Kim Chastain. You had a comment or from the?
Yeah, I was just going back on the one question, the last comment that Lindsay made about employees requesting benefits that they really don't qualify for. And that was the one question I have. I have an employee that did that. he went in and put his return date. He's back full time to work, but I guess because of overtime and the earnings that he was eligible for and UI benefits was more than what he's making right now, and he qualified for money, plus he got the $600. What does he do with that?
Yeah, so if you will send me their information, and then you'll verify for me the hours and the wages that they did earn for that week, we'll send that to our investigations team, and they'll review it. Now, what I don't know, we don't have clarity on because we haven't just decided yet, is on those situations if we're going to require them to repay the state that money right now, or if we'll take it as an overpayment on a future unemployment claim. We don't have that clarity now. Some of these questions I wish we had answers to, but we're trying to get the initial claims paid so fast that we're not really thinking about the future as much as we should, or I'm sure there are people that are thinking it through, but I don't know that we have clarity yet on if we want the money back or if we'll take it in an overpayment. But for now, if you will send me that information, we'll get it in front of the investigations team so we can verify. And for those of you that are doing those e-claims, or even if you've had individuals file their own claims, once we get into the summer and things kind of calm down, we also have a process where you can basically submit an audit file, and you can submit the hours your employees did work and the wages they earned, and our system can compare that to what they reported, what your employees reported, and then we can compare and find out if there's instances of fraud. So that's something we can do. Again, we don't have the staff capacity to do it right now, but once we get into summer and fingers crossed things calm down, we can do those audits of the accounts for you.
I told him not to send the money yet, so should I just tell him to wait, or?
Tell him to hang tight.
Okay.
Put it in an interest-bearing account, and then we'll let them know what to do with it.
We'll go to a couple questions to Tiffany Walls. And I think the first one, is pretty straightforward. I think I remember. How long are employees eligible for the $600 a week?
So the federal government has allowed those payments to go through July 31st of this year. As long as they are on state benefits, getting at least $1 from the state, they get the full $600 through July 31st. But again, if they go back to work full time, that's going to stop.
Okay. And Tiffany, are you comfortable? I mean, Lindsay went through some websites and things of that nature because your last question. What are some resources you can give employees that have qualified for benefits but still have not received any payments? Now, I guess before we get into that too much, was that through an e-claim? So is that something you can compile in one email maybe?
So this would be through individual claims. And I guess one other question I would have based on what we were talking about earlier is with the return date, if employees filed an individual claim and they listed a return date, how does that work for them? Do they have to file a new claim, or are they able to log in and change that return date?
I don't know if they can change the return to work date, but again, if you send it to me, we can change it for them.
Okay.
But I would really encourage, again, if you've got a lot of workers that are impacted, send me one file with everybody in it and we'll just change them all at once.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does that help you, Tiffany?
Yes, thank you so much.
Great.
Paige,
Paige, are you back?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Perfect.
I got the fat finger and hit hang up instead of mute, and I apologize.
All right, so, I think though, so the direction on your the first question you asked is, you've got employees that are still laid off or have come back to work but haven't received their benefits. With the information, what Lindsay has talked about today, some kind of the websites and things of that nature, do you feel like you've got those resources, or is there something you want a little more clarity on?
Yes, we only have 20 to 30 employees. So this is not an e-claim where we're doing it for them. I know there are some former employees that, it defaults. So I'm getting 3 and 4 forms for the same employee. So I've realized what they're doing. But like I said, there's a couple of people that have come. I'm sorry?
That they tell on themselves when they do that.
Yeah, yeah. So again, we've had some people come back as well last week and this week. And I've had someone who's laid off who said, I may have to come back to work even though I don't have childcare because I'm not getting my benefits.
Yeah.
I am filling out these forms, and obviously the system is completely overloaded, and I've also told them I don't work for unemployment, so I can't really, but I mean, is there...
Either, but you know, we're all...
So I don't know if it would be, you know, if I necessarily fall in the category of, hey, let me send this email. These are the people that are saying they're not receiving the benefits.
Yeah, you can send me an email, workforce@ky.gov. Send me their information. After this webinar, Sked's going to send out an email with just some little templates and stuff, some standard answers, and then just shoot it to me, and we'll get those individuals straightened out.
Okay, I just didn't know if it was the same thing where we're not actually filing for them. You know, they're doing it on their own. So.
You as the employer can send them straight to me. Yep, you're fine.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're just trying to handle like some of the traffic. So if just employers email my office, we can handle that many requests. But if it opens up to the world and then I have all 500 employees of a company reaching out to, then it slows my quick time.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And Paige, I think we got your other question was about if an employee declined to return to work. We got that covered with the form, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yes, thank you.
Let us know.
Let's see. We got a few more here. I'm just making sure I got them, and then we got some in the chat. And Cleta, I think we answered your question about people needed to come back on, refile a claim. How long, we talked about the $600 is to July 31st, but how long may an employee currently laid off be able to receive unemployment benefits before looking for other work?
I do not know that answer. I haven't had that question asked yet.
Okay.
I don't know when we're going to change the looking for work answer. I think we're probably going to hope over the coming weeks that most people will get to go back to their original job. We are aware that may not happen. We're aware that a lot of businesses have learned how to do telecommuting or how to make do with less. And so we recognize some people won't be going back to work. And so in the coming weeks, you'll see some communications from this office about what we're going to do on some retraining initiatives. We have had some federal dollars awarded for some dislocated workers and things like that. And so we're going to be working with Sked and some of our local partners on trying to help those individuals that don't have jobs to go back to. But again, stay tuned on that. I don't have an answer on what the next steps look like. We're just trying to hopefully get everybody back where they started.
Yeah, and that would be the best for sure. Yeah. One other question from Cleta. Due to the COVID-19, will businesses in the state of Kentucky receive any financial help with the cost of unemployment taxes?
So for Q2 only, we are not charging these claims to your employer accounts. If you're a reimbursing employer, we're also not going to ask for reimbursement for Q2. Now Q2, keep in mind, when it did start was April 1. So if you did have claims that got filed in the month of March, those will go on your accounts, but anything from April, May, June will not. So hopefully that'll help you guys out a little bit. And then keep in mind the federal dollars, that has nothing to do with your employer accounts. So that's all federal paid. But hopefully the tax rates won't change. Really what impacts your employer tax rate is the health of our trust fund. If that were to change, that's the only thing that would impact your tax rate. So hopefully we'll be okay on that one. But just know you're not going to be charged for Q2.
Did that help you, Cleta? We just unmuted you. Can you hear us? Okay. All right. Well, one more question from the emails, and we'll get to the chat questions that are coming in. And I think we covered it. We're going back to return to work date question, and maybe we answered this. This one came from Kim Chastain. Does employers need to go to their UI profile and enter their return to work date, or does the employer? And I'm assuming this is for e-claims.
So hopefully, when our IT staff can get around to the growing to-do list we've given them, where you currently go into our website to file and pay your quarterly taxes, we're planning to add some functionality to that screen so that you can submit those return to work dates on behalf of all your employees and make it short and simple. And that way your individual employees don't have to do that. We don't have that functionality yet, but that's what we're going to be moving to, is trying to put some more forms into that online account you're used to going to already. But for now, again, if you just as the employer will submit the return to work dates on behalf of all employees, we won't ask each of your individual employees to do that.
Okay, so I just should tell all my employees when I'm bringing them back, do not go on there and put a return to work date.
Yeah. Just
Okay.
in case of operator error, just tell them to spend as little time as possible in their UI account.
Okay. All right, so we're going to get to these questions that are in the chat. So if I look, I'm trying to see the screen and manage bifocals for I'm used to wearing them. Thank you, Amanda. Just move the screen.
Connie asked a good question.
Yeah, Connie Witt. Yeah. And if you can see these questions on the chat screen, I won't read them.
Yeah.
That'd be even better. The less of my voice, the better. So if you can look.
The military does create a different flag in our system. If someone has been in the Army, they'll have to answer a few questions about that, and it creates a different flag. We can fix that. If he has not received anything, yeah, Connie, just send an email to me, and we'll get in there and get those flags cleared. We just had that training last week on military and immigrants, and there was another flag that comes up, so federal workers or something like that. So we can fix his.
Okay, Connie, we unmuted you. Did that help? Connie, are you on? Okay.
All right.
We'll assume it did. Then the next question was from Dennis Reynolds. Can you read that one,
Yep.
Lindsay? Okay.
So for those of you that are submitting e-claims with reduced hours rather than total layoffs, that's okay if the numbers you tell us change versus what the employee ends up working. We realize you can think you have the best plan, and then it's going to change over time. So no problem on that, Dennis. When your employee goes in to report what they actually worked, that's the number that's going to affect their benefit number, not what you tell us, but what they report.
Did that help you, Dennis?
Yes, sure did.
Yeah, but you don't need to send a revised file. Just keep sending your weekly ones when you make the changes.
Okay, so if they did work less, if they work 28 hours, just on the report, I know a few of them's had where it's not asking them the amount of hours or pay they worked.
Well, that's not right. Are you sure they should always be asked to report their hours and wages. So,
Okay.
Yeah, let me know on those, and we can go back in and manually input those wages. There's not many problems we can't fix. It just, you have to alert us, and sometimes it takes the highest level of trained staff to make those changes, but there's very few problems we can't fix.
The follow-up question from Dennis was, at an employee that originally filed on their own, can they be added to an e-file claim? And,
so I would have said no last week, but this week, and really in the last 36 hours, the system's been trying to convert some individual claims to e-claims when you all submit new files. So we're not really sure why it's doing that. But the employee shouldn't have to do anything if they're on your file. So if for some reason the system, puts them over in that e-claim protocols, that's fine. They just move to a weekly schedule instead of their bi-weekly as they were as an individual.
So it doesn't matter whether they did e-claim or individual. We've just got a few that's wanting to move over, not do it, or just let me do that.
I don't know how to manually switch them from an individual to an e-claim, but right now the system's kind of doing something a little squirrely and changing some of those on its own.
So for now, just best leave those people alone.
just
Okay.
Let's just see what the system does to that.
All right. Thanks, Lindsay.
No problem, Dennis.
Yeah, we appreciate your help.
Happy to help you guys. I mean, seriously, we really appreciate each of you employers that are trying so hard to take care of your employees, whether that's reduced hours or paying benefits during layoffs or whatever you can do. I mean, thank you all so much for being so good to your people and your communities. And we just wish our system was easier for you and for them to work with. But by golly, you can be sure there's going to be a lot of updates done over the next year after this experience.
All right. Well, we're going to unmute Dustin here for his question. I think I'm understanding it, but can you read that one, Lindsay, or I'll get it?
Yeah. So Dustin, if you clarify for me, you've got an employee. Are you paying for their childcare, or are you paying their regular wage?
Can you hear me?
Barely.
Basically, how do we handle employees that have childcare issues? The act says that we are to pay them 2/3 of their payment. However, we've heard other people say that they can draw unemployment. So which one is correct?
I'm going to have to ask my attorney before I answer that one publicly. I'm not sure with the requisites in the Family First Act how we're doing the two of those. If you are paying them for 2/3 and they're still missing that last third, they can request unemployment benefits for that 1/3. They would just need to report when they go in to request their benefit payment. They'll have to report the 2/3 you are paying them as income, and that will reduce their weekly benefit amount accordingly. So depending upon what they're making and how much you're paying them, they may not end up with a state payment that week. It just all depends on what the wages you're paying them.
Would they still get their $600?
If they get at least $1 from the state, they'll get the $600. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so this is from Rodney. Several clients I work with, we'll unmute Rodney so we can get some clarification. Employees that filed individually because the employer did not do an e-claim. The individuals are showing approval for their 2 weeks, but 0 as the benefit amount. What can be done to help those employees?
So that could be if they've gone in to request a payment and they've reported their wages and their wages are higher than their weekly benefit amount, they may not get a payment for that week. It's also possible that they may be converted to PUA, in which case it'll say 0 until that PUA gets set up for the $180. Rodney, send me those individuals' information and we'll look at each of those claims to see what the issue is. But those are the first 2 things that come to mind when I hear that someone's got their approval, but they're seeing 0s in their week.
Does that help you, Rodney?
Yes, thank you. I believe it's more latter of the second issue you mentioned than the first one. And I've already sent you that email.
Perfect. Yeah, just so you guys know, when your employees report their wages, the way the system currently functions, because unfortunately we don't have official work share yet, and I'm not even going to get too detailed into what we hope work share to be because we don't have it yet, but those reduced hours, what happens is when you report your wages, the system will multiply whatever they earned last week times 80%. We will then subtract that amount from their weekly benefit amount, and then they'll get the difference, if there is any, between the two. If an individual has qualified based on their base period wages for the full 552, which is our weekly maximum, what we're talking about there is if they're eligible for 552, they've got to make less than $690 in the previous week to get a state benefit payment. They make $690 or more, by the time I multiply that by 80%, that's going to be 552, and so they won't end up anything from the state. So that's why with some of you, we had to work pretty hard to figure out which are reduction, 32 hours, 31 hours, 28 hours, to be able to get them that $1 in state benefits so they get the $600 from the feds. So a lot of people have been confused that they've been approved for unemployment, but they didn't get a payment for that week. And in those cases, it's because unfortunately you made too much. It's not a perfect system. Unemployment, unfortunately, really wasn't made to support higher incomes. It's really more for the lower income folks as a safety net. And so unfortunately, we're still kind of stuck with that 552 weekly maximum, which limits how much you can earn in the previous week. Now, I will add, if you as an employer want to be kind to your staff and pay them, have them completely laid off, but you're going to give them a supplemental pay to pay for their health insurance or to make up the difference. If it's true supplemental pay and they are not working any hours or anything like that, supplemental pay is not reportable income for UI. So if you're giving them $100 a week to pay for insurance, they do not need to report that, and that will not be reduced. That will not be subtracted from their weekly benefit amount. So if you've got questions on if you guys are paying your workers something, how does that work? Just shoot me an email and we can get that clarity from the legal team. But I have recently discovered supplemental pay. So as if we didn't have enough confusing pieces to the process.
I think that is the last of the questions we have in the chat. I think I covered, oh, wait. I think let me go through my list of questions that folks emailed. I think we covered all of those. We did it in 1 hour and 6 minutes.
All right.
I think that's pretty good. I want to thank everybody for what you're doing for the region with your employees. You know, that is very important. We want to support you here at SCED, and I know Lindsay does as well with unemployment, your employees. I will say something before I thank Lindsay even more again. Keep in mind, just before I got on this call, Lindsay has been very forthcoming with her email address and where to send things. She is a staff of 3.
Our eClaim staff is 3, and I'm sharing my 10-person staff with all of UI right now. So
there's 13 people working all of eClaims, and 10 of them have never worked it before. So, and before I got on this call, Lindsay and I were talking, and she told me the number of emails that she had finally gotten down to after working late into the night, and it was a lot. So be patient. I know it's hard. You want to take care of your employees, and that's why you're doing it. But so does Lindsay and her staff and her people. I know this. I've known Lindsay for a while now, so we'll get through it, I guess, is the statement. And I appreciate everybody. If you're good, we're going to go. Maybe what we look at, Lindsay, in the future is another conference call, webinar over WorkShare once that starts to get ironed.
yeah, fingers crossed. Waiting on DOL and our IT department. So right now we don't actually have anything in our system that allows us to put that calculation in. So as soon as we get that, things will be better.
All right.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your week, and email me with any issues, and we'll do our best to get them resolved as quickly as possible.
Thank you. We appreciate everything. Thanks, you.
Guys.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Nay. Take care.
You too.